84 Wagner mercenaries dead, and over 47 Malian soldiers killed. In July 2024, the mercenary group Wagner PMC was destroyed by Islamic militants in Mali.
In a post on X, the Strategic Framework for the Defense of the People of Azawad said it killed 84 Wagner fighters and 47 Malian troops. The group, a coalition of anti-government groups in the north of the African country, said the losses occurred over 3 days of fighting.
Wagner has been active in Africa since 2017, and they have never recorded a loss this many in the continent. So just how did an elite mercenary group funded by Russia suffer one of its greatest defeats in history? In 2021, a coup d'etat was planned to overthrow the government in Mali. It was successful, and Mali entered a new regime. However, less than a year later, France, a country that had been of military aid against Islamic forces in Mali, announced that it was withdrawing all its 5,000 military personnel from the country. Mali was now a new government facing the relentless Islamic militants. Without any European or Western support, the president knew he had to find a solution, and he had to do it quickly. So the president turned to Russia, and Russia was ready to give their full support.
At Demodibo Keita International Airport in Bamako, Malian authorities received a new delivery of several warplanes and helicopters from Russia, its new major military and political ally. 10 aircraft were counted on ground, and in the air, 8 planes and 2 helicopters during the ceremony.
And along with the aircrafts came something Mali desperately needed: ground soldiers that were not afraid to face Islamic groups like Al-Qaeda, Jamaat Nusrat al-Islam wal-Muslimin, JNIM, and the Tuareg rebels. And this is where the mercenary group Wagner PMC came in. Funded by the Russian government itself, Wagner's mission in Mali was to help the country's military suppress the militants. For a while, the operation went smoothly. But in July 2024, this alliance came crashing down. In late July, Wagner PMC, alongside Malian's military, embarked on a mission the Malian government called a stabilization operation in the country's northeastern town of Tinzaouaten, near the Algerian border. Put simply, an operation to destroy all militants threatening the government's regime. However, what Wagner and Mali's government did not know was that the militants were well aware of their plans, and they had set just the right trap for them. A short coverage of the battle would simply state that the mission went sideways and the militants won. However, that does not do this story enough justice. And to fully cover what happened at the Battle of Tinzaouaten, the New York Times gathered information from pictures, interviews with participants, and local residents on the events that happened over the span of those 3 days. On the 23rd of July, 2024, the Wagner convoy managed to capture several villages. However, as the militants would later reveal to the New York Times, this was all part of their plan. They voluntarily gave up those lands. It was part of the trap they had set up for the convoy. The Tuaregs were tracking the mercenaries, waiting for the right times to strike. Now pay close attention to this. On July 24th and 25th, as the convoy journeyed through the region, their vehicle was blown up by 2 impoverished bombs planted on the road by the Islamic group. Due to this damage, the convoy had to take a different route and began moving through difficult terrain. And when the convoy reached Tinzaouaten, a Saharan rural commune in the far northeast of Mali, they were slowed down by sand dunes. And this was all part of the Tuaregs' plan. Because not so far away, Tuareg laid an ambush. Their first attack was from afar, and the Wagner convoy suffered their first loss. They immediately called in for 2 helicopters to carry the dead and the wounded. However, one of the helicopters was blown up by the militants before it landed.
A helicopter took off to help them, but had to land when it came under fire.
Then their nightmare began, a sandstorm. For the Tuareg rebels, the sandstorm allowed them to advance towards the convoy. But for the Wagners, it limited their ability to call in for reinforcement. At this point, Wagner's convoy was surrounded. On one side, they were being attacked by the Tuaregs, and the other by JNIM militants. And this is where the Wagnerites truly lost it.
On July 24th, a convoy of Malian and Wagner forces found themselves trapped between the Tuaregs of the CSP on an elevated plateau to their northwest and Islamist fighters known as the JNIM to the southeast.
Videos and images from the battlefield shows a Wagner mercenary trying to fix a malfunctioning grenade launcher. There were also pictures of abandoned mortars, unused armored vehicles, and ammunition scattered all over. As an unnamed Malian security service personnel would later tell the New York Times, Wagner had poor coordination with government forces and that the mercenaries underestimated the enemy. Speaking of the enemy, after the defeat of Wagner, the Islamic militants celebrated with joy as they took off with PMC vehicles and other equipment.
The rebels took Malian army soldiers prisoner. They destroyed numerous pickups and armored vehicles and captured some intact, like this Chinese-made VP-11.
In the end, it was confirmed the Islamic militants killed around 84 Wagner personnels and about 47 Malian soldiers. Among the Wagner personnels killed was Nikita Fedyanin, the administrator of the Gray Zone Telegram channel, where videos about Wagner operations and alleged propaganda were posted.
The most visible loss was Nikita Fedyanin. He was administrator of the Gray Zone, one of the mercenary group's main propaganda channels. His comrades posted a tribute to him on Telegram. They recognized him because of his scarf and his watch.
Nikita was part of the convoy, and most of the videos from the scene were recovered from his camera.
He was somebody that didn't necessarily occupy a high-ranking position within the military organization, but nonetheless was respected and had a large public profile, was important to broader efforts to propagandize the group domestically and internationally, circulate images of Wagner fighters abroad, as well as imagery associated with Wagner, their symbols, etc.
3 days after their massive loss in Tinzaouaten, Wagner retaliated, sending drone strikes into what they claimed were the Islamic militants' hideout. But the reports say otherwise.
3 days after the battle, the Malian army struck back with a drone attack that hit a camp of migrant gold miners, forcing them to flee. And in late August, another drone struck a pharmacy in the town. The army said the drone targeted fighters, but our observer in the town said it killed more than 20 civilians, including several children.
The New York Times reported that Wagner later sent a larger force to the battlefield. However, it was only to recover the bodies of the dead soldiers. The loss at Tinzaouaten resulted in heavy criticism from Russian publications, and other countries losing faith in the capability of the Wagner PMC. Following the defeat at Tinzaouaten, Wagner's reliability has been questioned by Mali's government, and they might be making a good argument. Because, for the decade France helped battle the Islamic militants, they only lost 59 French soldiers. Compared that to Wagner's loss in only 3 days. However, it would be unfair not to mention that Wagner has actually had many other successful operations since they arrived in Mali. A good example was in November 2023, when the mercenaries helped the Malian army recover the city of Kidal from a militant group. On the other hand, Russia's government has also faced backlash from the incident. In the aftermath of the Battle of Tinzaouaten, Russia's foreign minister Sergei Lavrov contacted the Malian government to assure them that Russia was still committed to the country. But Russia is not doing this out of loyalty. Mali is the 4th largest producer of gold in all of Africa. So a deal with Mali is super profitable for Russia, and besides, helping to fight terrorists. Wagner PMC was in Mali to protect the mining sites, because in 2023, Russia signed a deal with Mali to help build the country's largest gold refinery. But despite the backlash, this misfortune is already benefiting Russia. How so? Well, following the incident, a spokesperson for Ukraine's military intelligence allegedly insinuated that Ukraine may have played a role in providing information of their convoy's movement to the militant group. If this is true, that would answer the question. How did the terrorists know so much about their plans to set up traps for them? But anyways, this little misspeak from the spokesperson led to Mali cutting diplomatic ties with Ukraine, and other neighboring countries are doing the same.
These military rulers say they're cutting diplomatic relations with Ukraine. They've accused Kyiv of supporting Tuareg fighters inside Mali. The announcement comes after dozens of Malian soldiers and mercenaries from Russia's Wagner group were killed by Tuareg fighters in the north last week.
Although Ukraine later came out to deny any involvement in the Battle of Tinzaouaten, the seed is already sown, and many countries have lost faith and cut ties with Ukraine. This is a big win for Russia, given their ongoing battle in Ukraine. But while Russia might be celebrating, Wagner, on the other hand, is still trying to recover from the massive loss, and there's no telling when they'll be back on their feet.